I'm T-Set, and this is a Tea Time Lapse. If you know Sunny Garden, who posts little nice art videos here on YouTube, you may be familiar with the fact that every Halloween she likes to host a collab. This collab was themed Monster Idols. There were 20 of us, sorted onto 4 different teams of 5 members. I ended up on Team Alien with my friend Honey, which was really nice because I'm shy and have social anxiety, so having a friend as a teammate was really comforting. Early on, I threw out City Pop as a suggestion for a music genre for our group to play, and that ended up being what we went with. I'm sure everyone is familiar with City Pop. It had a bit of a resurgence here on the internet. It is a genre of music that originated from Japan in the 80s. At this early stage of concepting, I really wasn't sure how far we were going to lean into the City Pop, like if we were going to be 80s influenced in our fashion or not, but I was thinking about it as a possibility, but we were also considering whether we would go in more of like a Y2K direction with the fashion. It was up in the air still at this point. But I was going ahead and coming up with the basic concept of my character's face. And I probably could have gone more monstrous or unnerving with an alien, but I ended up going for something pretty cute. I also just didn't want to bite off more than I could chew because I didn't know how my health was going to be that month. My teammate Vinny was the first person to post a character concept, so I was looking at hers to try to figure out what vibe we were going for and make something that felt in the same world as her design. But even before Vinny posted anything, I knew I wanted my girl to be like this kind of shade of blue. Originally, I was going to go a more aquatic route with her, but I ended up getting derailed from that and forgetting. But it ended up coming through in the character detail that fans of the idol group gift her aquarium merchandise when she visits their planet, because she loves aquatic animals and so visits aquariums wherever she goes. I had been working on a number of outfit concepts, but this was the very first one I did, and it's the one we ended up going with, so it's the only one I'm going to show you in the video, just to keep it a reasonable length. But I did post one more of the concepts on my Patreon if you want to look it up. There are some late 80s J-pop singers who have just these mini skirts and these adorable heels and just like legs for days, and I combined that with like really exaggerated padded shoulders, and I just thought it was a really fun look. And I ended up helping a couple of my teammates with their fashions as well. As you can see, since we all have these colorful aliens, we went with white as a unifying outfit color, and we all utilized stars in some form as a motif. A concept for our idol group that we came up with pretty early on is the idea that all the members used to be in different groups, and they suffered from mistreatment or something went wrong in some way. My character in particular was originally in a dance-heavy group, but she was also a main vocalist, and she ended up with a vocal injury that required a lot of time to recover, that the group just wasn't going to wait around for her to recover from. And so she ended up being removed from the group. And it was a really difficult time for her because she wasn't able to sing, and that was something she was so deeply passionate about. And so she returned to piano, which she had learned when she was a child, and ended up becoming really passionate about it as an outlet, and ended up building up her skills so that it ended up rivaling her skill in singing. Early on in the piece, I considered putting little chibis of the other bandmates in the piece, but realized that that was making it unnecessarily complicated and would require me to wait until everyone else had like finished designs, so it just wasn't a practical thing to do. So I nixed that, although I do come back and consider it later again, and then nix it again. Once I got the initial thumbnail down for this picture, it was really coming along. Like, most of the clean sketch comes along pretty quickly. The things I end up struggling with are the hair. There's some perspective things that are wrong with like the hands and the arms that I fix pretty late on, or make at least less bad pretty late on. And I also struggle with the microphone, because I really want the microphone to be futuristic and, you know, visually interesting in some way. but it needed to be consistent with other shapes that feature in the artwork. I didn't want it to come out of nowhere, so I really struggled with it for a while and then end up having to come back to it later. I realized far too late that I could just, copy one octave over and over again to get the full keyboard. But oh well. But yeah, I really struggle with this mic and mic arm before I settle on something that is pretty simple in the end. If I were to do a piano piece again, I think I would want to print out at least a section of a keyboard to pose on, because I ended up not really being able to get my character to be really playing the piano. Her hands are just sort of floating above like she's moving them, which is a shame, but it was the most realistic way to go about doing this angle with, the fact that I don't have a piano or a keyboard in the home. I did actually play piano when I was in elementary school. I liked playing jazz. I actually had a great teacher, but my parents actually sold off our old piano just a couple years prior, or else I would have been able to use it to get this angle of reference. And I considered doing chibis one more time before realizing, nope, keep it simple, and so I stick to this mic design. Originally I was going to do these wobbly shapes swooping through the background, and that's why I draw those guidelines in the background, but end up changing my mind in the end. And now for line art. The line art went smoothly up until a certain point. But at this point, I was feeling really good, I was really happy, I was feeling very productive. I believe I was in voice chat with everyone while working on this, and I really enjoyed the voice chats for this collab. It was just really nice hanging out in the mornings working on stuff, or even just doing other things because I frequently need to force myself to rest, so I can't keep working on artwork the way that healthy people can. It'll take me a week to do what other people can do in 2 days, and that can be a bit frustrating, but it's also just how my body works, and I'm really just glad to be able to make art at all. I realized at a certain point that the mic arm doesn't really make sense with how it's clamped on as far as perspective, but I end up deciding to keep it the way it is just because of composition reasons. As always, for drawing hands I use photographs that I've taken of my own. Okay, and this is for Sunny, and Sunny specifically. I'll make you draw clots someday, Sunny. I did consider giving the hands claws or webbing in between the fingers, but I just felt that it would be in the way for a pianist, and so I just kept it to really what my hands look like in real life with fairly short nails. Aside from the hair, the thing that gave me the most trouble was getting the folds in the blouse to look right. A normal keyboard seemed a bit dull, so I gave the black keys this fun wobbly shape that kind of imitates the antennae on her headset. My alien, Mariana, is Neon Constellation's pianist. We also have a bassist, guitarist, drummer, and saxophonist. Or saxophone player? What is someone who plays saxophone called? I should know this, my sister was literally a saxophone player. Not only did Neon Constellation win the public poll that Sunny ran for which idol group is the most popular, but my girl Mariana won the private among the artists voting for who is the top visual idol. Very narrowly, by one vote. It was a three-way tie for quite a while, apparently. So I just want to say thank you everyone in the public who voted for Neon Constellation, and thank you everyone in the collab who voted for Mariana. I'm really touched. This is my first collab that I've ever done. This was such a wonderful experience. I'm definitely coming back to any other collabs that Sunny does. Even if I never win again, it was just such a fun time hanging out with everyone. But back to the art piece. You can see that I've drawn in some hair, and I don't like it. I end up coming to the conclusion that hair is not going to work on that particular day, but I didn't want to get stuck where I was in the artwork and not be able to move forward and get frustrated and maybe not be able to finish it, so I decided to flat it and just come back and redo the hair later. And that ended up working out very well for me. And now drawing her facial markings, which she also has some on her fingers too. These definitely aren't makeup, but I haven't made up my mind if they are naturally occurring or tattoos or space henna. Not sure yet. Maybe most of them are naturally occurring, but then the little ring finger one is tattooed to resemble the natural markings. Maybe it's like her name in a traditional way of writing. I really ended up committing to these squiggly lines resembling her markings. I even end up putting it in the background, and that ended up, I think, influencing the rest of my teammates, or most of my teammates, for how they drew their backgrounds. I end up realizing a really easy way to make these stars look good. You'll see me do it in a moment. There we go. Yeah. It's really easy to make them look good that way. I think I found this particular star shape looking at Gem and the holograms. Okay, time for background squiggles. And then it was time to give the hair another shot. This time it ends up working out. This time it turns out right, and I'm so relieved, and it's like, ah, yes, I can finally finish the line art. And then doing the end of the ponytail, I realized there's an easier way to do this. There's an easier way to do this that I've seen people explain before, and yet my cognitively impaired brain forgot. But you know, that's just how it is, drawing with MECFS. So once flats are done, everything else is really icing on the cake, because I was not sure if my health was going to allow me to finish the piece at all this month. So I was just trying to get flats and line art done, and if that was all I got done, I was going to be very proud of myself, because I really had a hard time at one point during this month. But lo and behold, shading happened. And is it the best shading I've ever done? No. And if I had had more time, if my health hadn't eaten up like a whole week that I had planned to work on this, I would have done a little bit more. I would have changed some things. I would have gone back and done some stuff. But I decided to leave this as it was at the end of the collab. I think it would have been nice if the hair and the cloth had picked up more of the neighboring colors. I think that would have made it more polished. But it really was just a time and energy thing. I am still proud of the piece I made. I still think it's pretty. We're all just looking forward to how we can improve for our next picture. I was working on shading this in the voice chat on the morning of the day it was due. And that is the reason why there's not going to be as much futzing around at the end. It's because it was like, this is good enough. It's going in the Dropbox. Just trying to give the lit surfaces a subtle glow. And here's the final piece. As always, thank you so much for watching.